And now we're going to go into the application of the laser lipolysis handles. So many people do not like laser lipolysis because they do not find it very effective. So that is a big myth. Laser lipolysis is extremely effective when used correctly. The first tip I'm going to provide you is a nice emollient. Now, by that term, I'm not meaning an oil and not necessarily a conductive agent like ultrasound gel and or glycerin mix. We don't need that with radio frequency. But what has happened, or sorry, we don't need that with laser lipolysis. But what we're doing with laser lipolysis in this infrared technology is we're creating heat on the tissue, all right? It's going to be penetrating into the subcutaneous layers. We're going to talk about wavelengths and why that's important. It's going to be boosting collagen and elastin, and it's going to be hitting that superficial layer of fatty tissue. So this will not penetrate as deeply as cavitation will, but it is good to create malleability in the fatty tissue so that we can go in and break it up further after that fatty tissue has been compromised with the cavitation handle. Now, what a good emollient is going to do is it is just going to help you to prepare the skin, and it's going to have some great byproducts in it that will help with fat reduction and or skin tightening. So you are looking for something that is going to be a nice caffeine serum. It's got an ingredient that I think is EGCG. It's found in green tea as well. So a lot of body contouring specialists will steep some green tea and make a green tea spray. When we put it on the abdomen and we put the laser lipolysis pads on top of it, that red light therapy is going to help with the absorption of that EGCG, which is going to help with the breakdown of fatty tissue. And it's also going to help with the skin tightening as well. So we're getting 2 for 1. Work smarter, not harder. The red light therapy is going to help with absorption of any product on the skin. It's going to help create microchannels to push it into the dermis. So use a product that is going to help with the effectiveness of your treatment, whether that's going to be a caffeine serum, again, a green tea mix. Avoid any kind of oils because oils will create another barrier on the skin and reduce the penetration of the red light infrared technology. And so it basically will create more deflection because of its makeup. So stay away from oil on the abdomen with any of your frequency therapies, okay? Now, I want to talk to you about these little numbers on your red light therapy, okay, or laser lipolysis. All of laser lipolysis is going to be red light therapy. Red light therapy works within different wavelengths. So you can see the numbers on the paddles here are between 635 nm and 650. Now, this is the range where we are going to be able to penetrate into the skin and hit that superficial layer of subcutaneous fatty tissue. Some of these paddles will only range from 350 nm to 600 or 635 nm. That is where you're getting collagen boosting and the reduction of inflammation. It is important for you to understand wavelengths and depth of penetration for any kind of body contouring tool because it's going to determine the effectiveness of treatment. So we're seeing that here with regards to red light wavelengths. So when you want that fat reduction, we want to hit that 650 nm. Nancy Martha say it, all the way up to the belts, which you can get that go up to 850 nm. And that is better for creating that malleability in that fatty tissue, for compromising that fat cell so that it can start to break down and release its content into the body to get picked up by the lymphatic system and detoxified through sweating, urination, and even breathing, okay? Now, the application of laser lipolysis is very straightforward. What you need is direct contact with the skin. So those laser pads need to be directly in contact with skin. What does this mean? Do not wrap your client and put them on top, okay? That wrap is going to create deflection, and it's not going to get the full absorption of that wavelength into the tissue. What does this mean? This means we're not putting them upside down. I know some of you laugh, believe it or not, I've seen it happen. This is doing absolutely nothing for the client. We are going to have direct, unobstructed application of this laser lipolysis on the body for it to do its job, all right? So again, the wavelengths is creating micro channels into the dermis. If we have it on the higher wavelength, closer to that 650 nm, that's going to be penetrating the superficial layers of the dermis and hitting that top layer of fatty tissue. Now, another thing, that I loved about this machine, so not just, this little extra piece that's going to avoid the tangling of the laser lipolysis, but this machine came with a waistband. Now, if you've taken any of my courses, you know that I have been teaching to use a waistband for the past 4 years, because now we've got them in, we have solid pressure. They work a lot better than those thinner bands, which tend to get out of place when the body moves. So what have we done for our laser lipolysis? We started with the preparation of the tissue, which is essential to any treatment process. We go over that in all of our master classes. Then we've done the application of the modalities. So we talked about wavelength. We want to ensure that we're in the correct wavelength. 650 and up is going to do fat reduction. Anything below is going to work with boosting collagen, okay? We talked about applying a nice emollient, so a serum, even a green tea spray to help with the breakdown of fatty tissue or the boost of collagen in the body for this treatment to be effective. We talked about direct application, so it has to go directly against the tissue with no obstruction. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that time on tissue. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn these on. Now, because I'm working with fat reduction, I want this to be on the highest level. So I'm going to turn it all the way up. Laser lipolysis should have a consistent flow. So if I take this off, you're going to see we're not doing any flashing or pausing. That is going to create a redundancy. These laser lipolysis are only creating those microchannels, are only working on the tissue when the light is on. We don't need a pause in it, okay? So we're going to have a consistent light flow, a consistent laser penetration, creating those microchannels into the tissue while it's on the body. Now, time on tissue, I've mentioned a number of times. I brought it up at the beginning of training. I said, this is why you are not going to use every single handle, every single treatment, because of time on tissue. So time on tissue for laser lipolysis ranges from 10 to 15 minutes. That means that these need to be on for a minimum, I would say 15 minutes for it to be effective, okay? So the first 5 to 7 minutes leading up to that 10 is just breaking down that barrier that the skin naturally creates. You need at least 15 minutes to create that malleability and that breakdown of that fatty tissue. So if you are starting a fat reduction process with laser lipolysis, depending on the circumference of your client, you are going to want to have these handles on for about 20 to 30 minutes, again, depending on the circumference. And that's so they can really do their job. If you are putting these handles on, if you're putting these laser lipolysis paddles on for 5 minutes, it's not doing anything for your treatment process. Okay, guys, it's a redundancy. It's doing absolutely nothing. So you want to make sure that you're following the rules with time on tissue. Again, I'm going to reiterate, skin has a natural barrier to frequency. So even though we have conductive agents for our other modalities, like glycerin and ultrasound gel, laser lipolysis still requires that time to penetrate into the tissue, create those microchannels, and break down the fatty tissue, okay? So these are sitting nicely. They're secured in place with this nice little belt that came with the machine. We're absolutely loving that, all right?